host, Nick Mathur, and it's great to have you guys here with me today because I'm going to be talking about something which is quite honestly a thing I sort of suffer with, and this is as of recently, and also as of recently, and also in the past. So I just used the word that I'm going to be talking about today, which is the past, and I'm going to be talking about why we focus on the past and more particularly why I focus on the past and I have been focusing on and the dangers it's sort of caused in my life in a way, especially in my emotions and thoughts. And because those thoughts of the past were not constructive and actually helping me moving forward. So we're going to be talking about the past. And there's going to be a little agenda I'm going to include as usual. And the first one is going to be what is focusing on the past and what does that entail from my perspective and my experiences. The second one is it good or bad to focus on the past? And this is a core question many people ask when we sort of think about the past or think about the future and so on. And the third and final one is how do we utilize these thoughts in a productive manner? And that sort of ties into the second question in our agenda. So let's get straight to it, to be honest. And the first question I'm going to answer is with my perspective. And it's with my perspective. Out of all honesty, there's been countless times where there's been something that's happened and some stuff which have happened maybe days ago or weeks ago or even hours ago where the scenario sort of ruminates in my head and the thoughts constantly replay, and it's sort of an overthinking scenario. And this overthinking scenario is where I constantly think of what happened. How could I have, how this is going to impact me? And and to be honest, it's just thinking about this particular event that has happened. And that's what I sort of that's my experience of focusing on the past is just thinking about a specific event and from that specific event the subsequent negative events which may occur due to that. And everything I visualize is sort of negative. And let me give you an example. For example, one day at work I may have communicated with an employee in a rude manner. And the next few days, I would be thinking or overthinking about that particular scenario. And from that, I would be thinking, oh, I'm going to get fired. Oh, I'm going to be released. Oh, this and that. All the negative events that may happen. And accordingly, build these stories that may or may not happen. And this is the art of sort of overthinking and thinking about the past and what could happen, what may happen, and just trying to predict the future. And it's really, really detrimental. And you're probably asking, why is it detrimental? First of all, when you think of scenarios in a non productive manner, and in this case, this was very non productive because all you're doing is ruminating the event which happened and the subsequent negative emotions. And that does not move you forward in any particular way. Matter of fact, it moves you backward. Because all you're doing is rewiring your brain to think of negative scenarios, negative things that may happen. And ultimately, you're filling up your thoughts, your time, and effort with things that may not happen, and things and predictions which are absolutely useless for you and your productivity. So that's how ruminating about the past has really impacted me. There's been days where I spend majority of my time thinking about what I've done a few days ago. Some days I even think about stuff I did years ago. And I'd be thinking, oh, this is going to impact me now. This is going to be impact me in the future. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. I'm be building these scenarios, these stories, and these predictions, which are absolutely not based on fact. It's based upon a rewiring of your brain, which is completely negative and quite honestly useless. And this sort of ties into my second question of today, and the question is focusing on the past a good or bad thing? Now, I'm not sure if you know a boxer called Anthony Joshua, and he recently fought against an influencer, Jake Paul. And I've watched before every boxing fight, there's a press conference which or where the fighters sort of speak and talk about how they prepared, their mentality, and so on. And I watch Anthony Joshua talk about the past. And I sort of derived or gathered a few insights from his message. When he was talking about the past, it was productive, it was useful, and it was constructive. We cannot avoid thinking about the past because ultimately, the past is the result of who we are today. Or no, the present is the result of the past. Getting my words mixed up. But the present is a result of the past, and the past sort of builds us of who we are today in a way. So the past is important. Now, the scenario I talked about before is a very unproductive way to think about the past. And let me reiterate, an unproductive way of thinking about the past is just ruminating thoughts and building false and negative storylines. Contrary, the way Anthony Joshua approached a more positive way of thinking about the past is a way of essentially thinking of the past as a way to learn, as a way to grow. And whatever events happened in the past, he embraced them. He embraced them by saying or asking himself a few questions. And these questions are, what can I learn? How can I grow from the situation? And what can I do better in the future? And that's a brilliant mentality. And that's a constructive way to think of the past. Because essentially, you're utilizing these events and these ruminating thoughts to build yourself. Build and rewire your brain towards improving yourself and becoming a better version. So, think of the past, just to reiterate and summarize, thinking of the past is something we cannot avoid. If I tell you to stop thinking about, say, a blue elephant, I'm telling you, you'll probably be thinking about a blue elephant. And there have been numerous times when someone has told me to stop thinking about someone or something. And after that, my thoughts have been just orientated around those things and those people. Because it's very hard to get your mind off a particular subject. It's how thoughts work essentially. And we need to essentially realize that these thoughts are flowing energy. And this flowing energy can be utilized for good or bad. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect at this. As a matter of fact, I'm working on this right now. Quite honestly, this past few days, it's been really hard to be sort of positive with those thoughts in a way. But having watched Anthony Joshua approach thinking about past situations as a way to learn and grow, I realized that my mentality, my perspective really needs to change. And this also links to the growth mentality or the growth mindset, where essentially you look at situations as a time and place and effort to grow. And you don't look at situations as the downfall of your whole life, the downfall of who you are, and yeah, it does not dictate who you will become and so on. And this sort of answers my last question. How do you utilize these thoughts? And how do you utilize the thoughts of the past and ruminations and so on? And we just answer that. It's all through a positive outlook on utilizing that energy, those thoughts and energy, in a productive way. And I'd like to give you guys an example, maybe, because I think examples are great ways of putting what we've learned today into practice. And this is also associated with, a task I could give you guys at the end of this podcast episode. To say, I mean, I'm going to give you an example because I need an example also to practice. So, and this is going to probably be a AI showstopper series episode as well. But okay, let's give you an example. Say you said something bad to somebody, yeah, and say this was a good friend of yours, and you said something bad, or you you just did something bad, and you regret it. There's two ways you could approach this. There's one way you could approach this is by ruminating over that event in a negative sense and building storylines which do not move you forward. Contrary, you can approach this in another manner and see these thoughts and ruminations as, right, I really need to improve as a person. I really need to do this differently next time around. And use those thoughts and emotions as an engine for growth. And that's my example. And this sort of links with a task I'm going to give you guys, which you guys may practice or may not practice. I want you guys to think of a situation which happened in the past, a situation which you're currently thinking about and is constantly ruminating in your head. I want you to write it down on paper. And underneath, I want you to write down, how can you grow from that situation? How can you become a better person from that situation? And in a way, it can also be you listing out the potential positives from that situation. And I know that could be an absolute, train wreck in a way, because it may be a completely bad thing. But say your thing is just overthinking of a particular situation, like you doing something in public or you doing something at work, which doesn't really involve anything bad per se. So I want you to think of potential things which may be positive from that situation and things you may have gained and how you may have helped others or so on. And that's the task I'm going to give you guys today. And I'm going to give myself that task actually. I'm actually going to fill in that question I've literally asked you guys right now on this piece of paper I have in front of me. And you don't need to share this with anybody, I guess. You can just you can write this down in your diary or piece of paper, rip it up, throw it away. But out of all honesty, this is how the past should be thought about in a way. And it's not about it should be or it could be. It's really subjective, but it's a way that I feel like it's a really optimal way of approaching things. It's a way to enable growth within you and build your future in a more appropriate manner. And yeah, I really think people would benefit from this, especially me. I'm telling you, especially me. Upon making this podcast episode and upon making these episodes, I'm going to touch upon this in maybe a different episode, but there's been a feeling of, or the need to be perfect. There's a feeling of the need to be such a brilliant individual. But what makes this podcast so useful and really authentic to me is that I struggle with many things in life, and like anybody else I have my imperfections, you guys have your imperfections, and so on. But the power is, out of all honesty, is embracing those imperfections and using those imperfections to become a better person. And those imperfections may be the fact that you are focusing too much on the past, or you're not good at communicating with your partner, or you're not good at staying in touch with your family, or you have bad habits. And these imperfections can be analyzed, evaluated, and used to become a better person, sorry. And similarly, this is why I make these podcasts. I like talking about these topics and working along with you guys, sharing my journey, a journey which you guys could also join along, and we can all sort of benefit from it. I really appreciate you guys watching this video and really hoped you guys liked this episode as well as a previous one I uploaded with Radhika, and that was 2 weeks ago. And took a bit of a break last week, but we're back as usual. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys joining today. I hope everyone's having a good week and day, and I'll see you next week, and take it easy. Bye bye.